You can't even imagine what it's like to come home for Halloween expecting the house to be filled with laughter, pumpkin lights, and the sound of your daughter's voice, only to find it empty, except for a young man you barely know. If you think you know how this story ends, you're in for a shock. Because when my wife left me alone with her son from her first marriage, she thought I'd just play along. But 4 days later, she was the one begging for forgiveness. Before I tell you what happened in those 4 days, I want you to do something for me. If you've ever been left behind by someone you trusted, or if you've ever had to face a family secret alone, hit that subscribe button, like this video, and share your story in the comments. You're not alone, and your voice matters here. Let me take you back to that night. I'd been away for a week visiting my brother in another state. I came home on Halloween, suitcase in hand, ready to surprise my daughter Emily with her favorite candy and a new costume. But when I opened the door, the house was silent. No laughter, no music, not even the smell of pumpkin pie. Just darkness and the faint sound of the TV in the living room. I called out for my wife Karen and my daughter Emily. No answer. I walked through the house, my heart pounding, until I found Karen's son from her first marriage, Tyler, sprawled on the couch, half asleep, a bowl of candy on his lap. He opened one eye and grinned. "They're gone," he said, his voice lazy. "Karen took Emily on a cruise with her ex. She said you'd stay here and take care of me. Said I needed the company." I stared at him, stunned. She what? She left with my daughter? With her ex-husband? Tyler shrugged, popping a piece of candy in his mouth. "That's what she said. She left you a note on the fridge." I rushed to the kitchen, my hands shaking. The note was short and cold. "In a cruise with my ex and Emily. Tyler needs you. Don't call. We'll be back in 4 days." If you've ever been blindsided by someone you love, you know the kind of anger that makes your vision blur. I wanted to scream, to throw something, to call Karen and demand answers, but I knew she wouldn't pick up. She never did when she was with him. I went back to the living room, where Tyler was now sitting up, watching me with a strange smile. "Shall we begin?" he asked, his tone almost mocking. I nodded, not trusting myself to speak. I didn't know what he meant, but I knew I had no choice. For the next 4 days, I was trapped in my own home with a young man I barely knew, while my wife and daughter sailed away with her ex-husband. If you've ever been forced to play along with someone else's game, you know how quickly fear turns to resolve. I decided then and there that I wouldn't be a victim. I would find out what was really going on, and I would make sure Karen regretted ever thinking I was useless now. What would you do if your own wife left you behind for her ex and took your daughter with her? Would you wait quietly, or would you fight back? Let me know in the comments. And if you haven't seen our story about the father who turned the tables on his family, watch it next. Sometimes the best revenge is the one they never see coming. That night, as I lay in bed, I listened to Tyler moving around the house. I wondered what secrets he was hiding, what Karen had really planned, and how I was going to survive the next 4 days. I promised myself I wouldn't let them break me. I would find out the truth, and when Karen came home, I would be waiting. You ever spend a night in your own house and feel like a stranger? That's how I felt as I lay awake, listening to Tyler's footsteps echo through the halls. Every creak of the floorboards made my heart race. I kept replaying Karen's note in my mind. "Don't call, we'll be back in 4 days." The words felt like a slap. My wife had left me behind, taken my daughter, and handed me over to her son like I was nothing more than a babysitter. The next morning, I found Tyler in the kitchen making himself breakfast. He looked up, grinning. "Sleep well?" he asked, as if nothing was wrong. I forced a smile and poured myself some coffee, determined not to let him see how rattled I was. Tyler was nothing like me. Where I was careful and quiet, he was unpredictable, sometimes charming, sometimes sharp, always watching. He seemed to enjoy my discomfort, making little comments about the house, about Karen, about Emily. "You know, Mum always said you were too soft," he said, his eyes glinting. "Maybe it's time you proved her wrong." I ignored him, focusing on the chores that needed doing, but Tyler followed me from room to room, asking questions, poking at old wounds. "Why do you stay with her?" he asked. "Why do you let her treat you like this?" I didn't answer. I didn't owe him anything. But as the hours passed, I realized Tyler knew more than he let on. He mentioned things about Karen's past, old debts, secrets, even hints about the cruise. "You ever wonder why she took Emily with her?" Tyler asked, his voice low. "Or why she left you here with me? If you've ever felt the ground shift beneath your feet, you know how terrifying it is to realize you don't know the people closest to you." I started to wonder if Karen's trip was really about family time with her ex, or if there was something darker going on. That afternoon, Tyler handed me a folder. "You should read this," he said. Inside were copies of emails, bank statements, and photos. Evidence of Karen's secret life. Affairs, hidden accounts, even plans to move money offshore. My hands shook as I read through the pages. Karen hadn't just left me behind, she was planning to leave me for good. If you've ever discovered a betrayal so deep it makes you question your whole life, you know the kind of rage that follows. I wanted to call Karen, to confront her, but I remembered her note, "Don't call." I realized then that Tyler wasn't just a bystander, he was trying to warn me. "Why are you showing me this?" I asked, my voice trembling. Tyler shrugged. "Because you deserve to know, and because Mum thinks she's smarter than everyone else. She's not. Not anymore. If you've ever had an unexpected ally in the middle of a storm, you know how complicated it feels." I didn't trust Tyler, not completely, but I knew I needed his help. For the next 3 days, we worked together, gathering evidence, making copies, preparing for Karen's return. What would you do if you found out your spouse was planning to leave you with nothing? Would you fight back, or would you let them win? Let me know in the comments. And if you haven't seen our story about the father who turned the tables on his cheating wife, watch it next. Sometimes the best revenge is the one they never see coming. By the 4th day, I was ready. I had everything I needed, proof of Karen's lies, Tyler's testimony, and a plan that would make Karen regret ever underestimating me. All I had to do was wait for her to come home. That night, as I sat in the living room, folder in hand, I heard the sound of keys in the door. Karen and Emily walked in, laughing, their faces flushed from the cruise. Karen's smile faded when she saw me, and Tyler waiting. She had no idea what was coming next. You ever see the look on someone's face when they realize the game is over? That's what I saw in Karen's eyes the moment she stepped through the door and found me sitting there, folder in hand, Tyler standing at my side. Emily ran past her, straight into my arms, her little face lighting up with relief. Karen's smile vanished, replaced by a flicker of panic. She tried to recover, putting on that familiar mask of charm. "You're back early," she said, voice too smooth. How was your week with Tyler? She shot her son a look, but Tyler just shrugged, arms crossed, silent and steady. I didn't answer. Instead, I slid the folder across the table. You left this behind, I said, my voice calm but cold. Karen's hand trembled as she opened it, her eyes scanning the evidence, emails, bank statements, photos, all the secrets she thought she'd buried. Her face went pale. What is this? She stammered, but I could see the truth dawning in her eyes. She knew she was caught. Tyler stepped forward. It's everything you tried to hide, and it's going to the lawyer in the morning, unless you want to make this easy and confess now. Karen's bravado crumbled. She looked at me, then at Emily, then back at Tyler. You don't understand. I did this for us, for the family. I just needed a little more time. I cut her off. You did this for yourself. You left me here, lied to me, tried to steal everything we built. You took Emily on a cruise with your ex and thought I'd just sit here and wait for you to come back. You're wrong. If you've ever stood up to someone who thought they could control you, you know how powerful that moment is. My hands were shaking, but my voice was steady. I wasn't afraid anymore. Karen tried to plead, but Tyler shook his head. It's over, Mom. You can either come clean, or we'll let the police and the lawyers handle it. Your choice. For a long moment, Karen just stood there, shoulders slumped, defeated. Then she turned and walked out of the room, slamming the door behind her. Emily clung to me, her small arms tight around my neck. Are you okay, Daddy? She whispered. I hugged her close. I am now, sweetheart. I am now. If you've ever had to protect your child from someone they should have been able to trust, you know how much it hurts. But you also know that sometimes the only way to save your family is to face the truth, no matter how painful it is. That night, Tyler and I sat at the kitchen table, the folder between us. You did the right thing, he said quietly. She never deserved you, or Emily. I nodded, tears finally spilling down my cheeks. Thank you, Tyler, for everything. He smiled, a little sadly. Family's complicated, but you're not alone anymore. If you've ever found strength in an unexpected ally, you know how much it means. What would you do if you were in my place? Would you forgive, or would you move on? Let me know in the comments. And if you haven't seen our story about the father who found his power after betrayal, watch it next. Sometimes the best revenge is simply taking your life back. You ever wake up the morning after a storm and realize the world is different, but you're still standing? That's how I felt as sunlight streamed through the kitchen window, Emily still asleep in her room, Tyler quietly making coffee. The house was quiet, but it was a new kind of quiet, one that felt like possibility, not fear. Tyler handed me a mug, his eyes gentle. You did what you had to do, he said. Karen's gone. Now you get to decide what comes next. I nodded, feeling the weight of the last few days settle on my shoulders. I called my lawyer, explained everything, and sent over the folder Tyler and I had put together. This is more than enough, she said. We'll start proceedings today. Karen won't be able to touch a cent, and you'll have full custody of Emily. If you've ever had to fight for your child, you know how terrifying it is. But you also know that every step forward is a victory. Later that day, Karen tried to come back. She pounded on the door, shouting, begging, threatening. Tyler stood between us, calm and unflinching. You need to leave, Mom. The police are on their way. Karen's anger turned to desperation. "You can't do this. This is my house, my family." I looked her in the eye, my voice steady. "Not anymore. You made your choice. Now you have to live with it." The police arrived minutes later, escorting Karen off the property. Emily watched from the window, her small hand in mine. "Is Mommy gone?" she asked. I knelt beside her, brushing her hair from her face. "She's gone, sweetheart, and she's not coming back." If you've ever had to explain loss to a child, you know how much it breaks your heart. But you also know that sometimes the only way to heal is to tell the truth. That night, Tyler and I sat on the porch, the autumn air crisp and full of promise. "What will you do now?" he asked. I smiled, feeling hope for the first time in a long time. "I'm going to rebuild, for Emily, for myself, for the life Margaret wanted us to have." If you've ever started over after losing everything, you know how hard it is, but you also know that every sunrise is a new chance. What would you do if you were in my place? Would you forgive, or would you move on? Let me know in the comments. And if you haven't seen our story about the father who found his strength after betrayal, watch it next. Sometimes the best revenge is simply living well. You ever realize that the hardest part of starting over isn't the paperwork or the logistics? It's facing the memories that linger in every corner. That's what I learned as the days passed and the house slowly became mine again. I found Emily's Halloween costume still hanging in her closet, the pumpkin lights still strung across the porch, a half-finished drawing on the kitchen table. Each one was a reminder of what we'd lost, and what we still had. Tyler stayed for a few days, helping with repairs, making sure Karen didn't try to come back. He was quiet, never pushing, always ready with a kind word or a gentle joke. Emily grew attached to him, following him around the house, asking endless questions. "Are you staying forever?" she asked one night as he tucked her in. Tyler smiled, brushing her hair back. "I'll stay as long as you need me, kiddo." If you've ever found unexpected comfort in someone you barely knew, you know how healing it can be. Tyler became more than just Karen's son, he became family. Meanwhile, the legal process moved forward. My lawyer was relentless, gathering evidence, filing motions, making sure Karen couldn't touch a cent of what Margaret and I had built. The judge granted me full custody of Emily and a restraining order against Karen. For the first time in months, I felt safe. But safety didn't mean peace. I still woke up some nights, heart pounding, expecting to hear Karen's voice or see her shadow in the hallway. I still caught myself looking over my shoulder at the grocery store, flinching when the phone rang. Healing, I realized, wasn't a straight line. One afternoon, Tyler found me sitting on the porch, staring out at the falling leaves. "You're allowed to be angry," he said quietly. "You're allowed to grieve. But you're also allowed to move on." I nodded, tears stinging my eyes. "I just want Emily to be happy. I want her to feel safe." "She will," Tyler promised. "Because you're here. Because you fought for her. If you've ever doubted your own strength, you know how much it means to hear someone believe in you. What would you do if you had to rebuild your life from the ground up? Would you let fear win, or would you choose hope? Let me know in the comments. And if you haven't seen our story about the father who found his power after betrayal, watch it next. Sometimes the best revenge is simply refusing to give up. That night, as I tucked Emily into bed, she hugged me tight. "I love you, Daddy," she whispered. "I'm glad you're here." I held her close, my heart full. I love you too, sweetheart, and I'm not going anywhere. You ever notice how the world feels different when you finally start to heal? That's what I realized as autumn faded into winter. The house was quieter, but it was a peaceful quiet, not the tense silence that used to hang in the air. Emily settled into her new routine: school, playdates, bedtime stories. She laughed more, slept better, and the shadows under her eyes slowly disappeared. Tyler became a fixture in our lives. He helped Emily with her homework, fixed the leaky faucet, and even taught her how to ride her bike without training wheels. Sometimes I caught him looking at me with a softness I hadn't seen in years, not pity, but respect. We talked late into the night, sharing stories about our childhoods, our dreams, our regrets. One evening, as snow began to fall outside, Tyler and I sat by the fire, sipping tea. "You know," he said, "I never thought I'd find a family again, not after everything with Karen. But you and Emily, you gave me that." I smiled, feeling warmth spread through me. "You gave us that too, Tyler. I don't know what we would have done without you." If you've ever found hope in the most unexpected places, you know how precious it is. Tyler wasn't just a protector, he was a friend, a confidant, and maybe, just maybe, something more. Meanwhile, Karen's presence faded from our lives. The restraining order held, and she moved out of state, trying to start over somewhere new. I heard rumors, failed jobs, broken relationships, more lies, but I didn't care. She was no longer my problem. The holidays came and went. Emily and I decorated the house, baked cookies, and made new memories. Tyler joined us for Thanksgiving, Christmas, and New Year's. We laughed, we cried, and we celebrated the fact that we'd survived. If you've ever rebuilt your life after losing everything, you know how hard it is. But you also know that every day is a victory. What would you do if you had a second chance at happiness? Would you take it? Or would you let the past hold you back? Let me know in the comments. And if you haven't seen our story about the father who found peace after betrayal, watch it next. Sometimes the best revenge is simply living well. That night, as I watched Emily and Tyler build a snowman in the yard, I realized that our story wasn't over. In fact, it was just beginning. You ever look around and realize you've built something new from the ashes of what was lost? That's what I saw as winter melted into spring. The house was filled with laughter again. Emily's giggles echoing down the hall, Tyler's deep voice reading bedtime stories, the clatter of dishes as we cooked dinner together. It wasn't the life I'd planned, but it was a life I was proud of. Tyler and I grew closer. We spent long evenings talking about the future, about what we wanted for Emily, for ourselves. Sometimes I caught him watching me with a look that made my heart skip, a look that said maybe, just maybe, we could both start over. One afternoon, Emily came home from school with a drawing. It was the three of us, me, her, and Tyler, standing in front of the house, all holding hands. "This is my family now," she said, beaming. I hugged her tight, tears stinging my eyes. "Yes, sweetheart, this is our family." If you've ever found love and safety after chaos, you know how precious it is. Tyler wasn't just Karen's son anymore. He was my partner, my friend, and the father figure Emily needed. But healing isn't always a straight line. There were still hard days, nights when Emily woke up crying, memories that crept in when I least expected them. Sometimes I wondered if I'd ever fully trust again, if I'd ever stop looking over my shoulder. Tyler understood. He never pushed, never rushed. He just held me when I needed it, listened when I needed to talk, and reminded me every day that I was stronger than I thought. If you've ever rebuilt your life after betrayal, you know how much courage it takes. What would you do if you had a chance at happiness again? Would you risk it, or would you let fear win? Let me know in the comments, and if you haven't seen our story about the father who found his strength after being left behind, watch it next. Sometimes the best revenge is simple, like choosing joy. That night, as I watched Tyler and Emily play in the backyard, I realized that the life I'd lost had made room for something better. We weren't just surviving anymore, we were living. You might think a story like this ends with a dramatic confrontation or a final act of revenge. But the truth is, real healing happens in the quiet, everyday moments. As spring turned to summer, our little family found a new rhythm. The pain of Karen's betrayal faded, replaced by gratitude for the second chance we'd been given. Emily thrived. She made new friends, excelled in school, and filled the house with her laughter. Tyler and I grew even closer, our bond deepening with every shared meal, every late-night conversation, every small victory. We weren't perfect, but we were real, and that was enough. One evening, as the sun set over the backyard, Tyler took my hand. "You know," he said softly, "I never thought I'd find a home again, not after everything with Mum. But you and Emily, you gave me that." I smiled, tears in my eyes. "You gave us that too, Tyler. I don't know what we would have done without you." If you've ever found hope after heartbreak, you know how precious it is. We celebrated Emily's birthday together, decorated the house for Halloween, and made new traditions, ones that belonged to us and no one else. Karen tried to reach out a few times, but I ignored her calls. I had nothing left to say to the woman who had tried to destroy us. My focus was on the future, on Emily, on Tyler, on the life we were building together. If you've ever had to let go of the past to embrace the future, you know how hard it is, but you also know how freeing it can be. What would you do if you had a second chance at happiness? Would you take it, or would you let fear hold you back? Let me know in the comments. And if you haven't seen our story about the father who found peace after betrayal, watch it next. Sometimes the best revenge is simply living well. That night, as I tucked Emily into bed, she hugged me tight. "I love you, Daddy," she whispered. "I'm glad we're together." I held her close, my heart full. "I love you too, sweetheart, and I'm not going anywhere." Tyler joined me on the porch, the stars bright above us. We sat in comfortable silence, the kind that only comes when you've survived the worst and come out stronger. I realized that our story wasn't about what we'd lost. It was about what we'd found. If you've made it this far, thank you for being part of my journey. Maybe you've faced your own heartbreak, or maybe you're still searching for a way to heal. Whatever your story, know that you're not alone. There's always a way back, even from the deepest pain. So, what would you do if you were left behind by the people you trusted most? Would you give up, or would you fight for your happiness? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Your story might be the hope someone else needs. And if this story touched you, please subscribe, like, and share it with someone who needs to hear it. Check out our other videos, especially the one about the father who found his strength after being left behind. Because sometimes the most powerful stories are the ones we live through, and the ones we choose to tell. Thank you for listening. Hold your loved ones close, and remember, Sometimes the best revenge is simply living your truth.